You are listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcast from the University City Science Center. This is your host, Dean Schwartz, with my co-hosts, John Bemeff-Cressa, Robert Petgrove, Gallagher Benefit Services, John Lee, Griffin Financial, Will Harley, Sandler Training, and Bill Shipp, Wells Fargo. Our guests today are, first, Brent Franklin, President, Unlimited Technology, followed by Jim Porcarelli, Chief Strategy Officer, Active International, Christy Ray, President of Big Green Solutions, and Graham Gill, Executive Director of Programs Employing People. Our next guest is Jim Porcarelli. Jim is the Chief Strategy Officer of a company called Active International. Jim, welcome to the show. What does Active International do?
Active International is a global solutions company that provides a financial instrument that restores value to companies' underutilized assets.
Okay. What's an underutilized asset? Is it an asset I don't visit very often? What is it?
Well, it can be real estate, it can be inventory, it can be capital equipment, it can be anything that sits on the CFO's books that he's having difficulty monetizing at full value.
It's something they don't use. It's an old plant that's no longer used. Is that right?
Yes.
So if I'm a company and I have an old plant that I don't use, you come in, what do you do for me?
So we analyze what it is you have to offer and what the real value of that is. And if in the marketplace you say it's $10 million, then we have it audited, and if it is, we agree to pay you $10 million for that, and in exchange, you agree to buy from us capacity in our key competencies, which is a huge advertising buying media company, a travel and logistics company shipping things around the world, as well as an event and a travel company and a remarketing group.
So these are things, as a company, I'm probably already buying.
Yes, and so you would buy them through us as opposed to buying through your current avenues at the price that you determine in the plan that you, in fact, have in place. So it's your plan, your price, but you divert the money to us in a multiple of what we pay you for your underutilized assets.
So you're not forcing me to do anything I don't already do. You're just saying, please buy it from us, and we'll take this property off your hands.
Right, which is why we offer a suite of products, because we want to, in fact, be a solutions to you. We don't want you to have to work in a way that you're not currently working.
So if I need to buy advertising, I buy it through Active. If I need to do travel, if I have logistics to ship something, I go to you, and you take care of it for me.
Exactly.
Okay. That sounds like it could be complicated, but when you explain it, it sounds pretty easy.
Well, actually, you know, it's a program that once you get into it is pretty seamless and pretty transparent. Discussing some of the components sometimes can be complicated, but that's why we all have lawyers and accountants.
Can you give me a simple example so we can understand? I think we simplified it, but give me a simple example, if you can, of what you did for some company and what they then did with you.
Sure. As we all know, large packaged goods companies often repackage their products. And when they're repackaged, usually there's products that still haven't been sold. So they're sitting on the shelf. Perfectly good products, but they want the new packaging out in the marketplace. So we will go in and give them the value for those products that are just sitting on their shelves. And in exchange, they agree to buy those products that we talked about through us.
Okay. Now, for this company, Active, you're the Chief Strategy Officer. What is that? What do you do?
Very good question. Many people in the company ask that question. I serve in several jobs. The first one is to actually set the strategy for the company, to help determine where the company is going, how to grow it, and how to make sure that it's relevant in the current marketplace. The other is to look at products and opportunities. For example, in the area of retail marketing, shopper marketing has become a huge component in the advertising world. It seems to be where a lot of the spending is going, even though traditional above-the-line spending is declining. It's increasing. So we've developed a team to tap into that into the marketplace, since clients, in fact, need and want that expertise.
So you help pick the services, in part, that Active will provide.
Correct.
You figure out what's hot.
Yes.
Or what's not, so to speak. So when you were 14, were you the Chief Strategy Officer of your family?
Well, I thought so.
Well, that's fair to say. Did your parents think so, too?
I think they had their hands full.
What number were you?
I was the eldest of three.
Well, maybe that's why. Number one is always the Chief Strategy Officer, isn't it?
I think so.
Seriously, when you were 14, what were you doing as a kid?
I was doing a lot of things, but one of the things that stands out is that I thought I was a producer and director. I would produce big productions, everything from Olympics to movies. I even did a coronation once.
A coronation for the neighborhood kids?
With cousins and the neighborhood kids and anybody that would participate. I thought casting was important, so I'd go out and even choose people that I didn't really know that well.
So you had big productions you were in charge of.
I was
and
in
casting
charge.
For it.
I was in charge.
So what is it, the similarity about then and now of what you were doing? You were running big productions then in the neighborhood. Are you running the big production at Active? What are you doing? What's the similarity?
Well, I'm certainly part of running the big productions. I've spent a big part of my career in charge of new business, and I think the things that I learned out of being the young producer-director was that casting is eminently important, that whom you have in various roles, whether it's the people that you put in new business pitches or the people that you put in charge to lead the company, casting is inordinately important. And then secondly, the teams that you put together. So casting is fine, but unless they come together as a team, you really don't have a successful production, if you will. And then the last component is preparation, something that I think my team and I think that all the folks that have worked for me through the course of my career were tired of hearing, is that you have to be constantly prepared. There's no such thing as over-rehearsing.
Mm-hmm. And let's go to that preparation. Preparation is really hard work, isn't it? You just can't say, I'm going to go in that day and wing it.
Well, in fact, winging it is not being prepared. It's the antithesis. And as a matter of fact, preparation is really from the inception of the idea to do your due diligence, to go in to be as smart as you possibly can about the category, about the subject, before you even decide that this is something you're going to go after.
So where did you learn that sort of, where did you develop that preparation was so important? Did you develop it and get that idea from your parents? Did you get that idea from your first experience in business? Or was it innate? Did you just always work hard? Where did you get it?
I think it was from my parents. My mother in particular was a very impactful force in the community. She was very social. She loved people. People were happy to follow her because they always knew that she was authentic, and I think that was important. And part of that was always knowing what she was talking about. She never shot from the hip, and whether she was raising money for the museum or whatever she was doing, she had done her due diligence. And I think through her we learned that charisma isn't enough to lead. You really have to be the example to those around you that you are as smart as you possibly can be, because you have to earn a seat at the table. You just can't show up in business and say, hey, what about using me? But you have to give people a reason to want to have you as a member of their team.
So I also know that before you did Active, you were very involved in the advertising world. You worked in advertising your entire career. You ran advertising companies, which is really, working in advertising for a client is a team, isn't it? A team approach?
It has to be. It's the only way to success. Because first of all,
you have creative on one side, client services. It's a team.
In
right?
media, it has to be a team. And you have to be best in class in each of those areas, but somebody has to pull that team together and motivate them.
And it's all about getting that call from the client and being ready, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So give me a story about, you worked for some big accounts in your day, didn't you?
Well, one of the most exciting times in my career is when I had the opportunity to participate in running the global Anheuser-Busch business. When they went to China and to Japan to do their joint ventures with Kirin and Tsingtao, I had the opportunity to be going over there to evolve our business with them. And the first thing I learned is the most important thing I could do was be a student. I wasn't there to tell them what to do yet. Even if I thought I had the answer, nobody was willing to listen. So in the Asian culture, until they feel that you're steeped in their processes, to this day, we've just opened our current firm has opened an office in China a couple of years ago, and we're still proving to them that we understand their culture and their modus operandi.
So after you left the advertising world, you came to Active, right? You
Yes.
left advertising,
Yes.
you went to Active.
Yes. 7 years ago.
So do you miss advertising? Is that the move? Did you know what you were getting into?
Well, advertising is an amazing business, and I
mean,
think
it's in your blood, isn't it?
It's in my blood, and part of it is the great thing about advertising is you get to be a student every week of your life because new business is its lifeblood, and as in all of my jobs, I seem to have been in charge of new business, and so it gave me the opportunity to learn about different categories and learn about what made different businesses tick and what made them successful. So I don't necessarily miss the advertising agency business because it's evolved now in its own way, and in an unusual way. But our current company, because we're an enormous media buying company, and because we're involved in that aspect of the advertising world, I do stay very much connected. So I get to keep some tentacles in that world.
Mm-hmm. And day-to-day, are you a day-to-day guy, or are you a strategy guy, going back to that?
At Active International, I have to be both, because Active International is a sales company. I mean, it's selling ourselves to businesses around the world. We're a global company. So you have to understand where the market is today, you have to understand where the pressure points are, and you have to understand what's keeping CFOs and CEOs up at night. So from that standpoint, if you're not a day-to-day guy, I don't think you'll be successful in the industry. At the same time, as a strategist, I have to attempt to look out 3, 6, 12 months, 2, 3, 5 years to see how can we retain our relevancy.
Exactly. You do a little of everything. John Lee, one last question.
Yeah, Jim, you mentioned leaving advertising, going to Active, where you're doing some different things. What was attractive to you about that? What attracted you at Active that was maybe different from what I understand there's certainly media buying and advertising is a big part of Active, but there's other parts as well.
The great opportunity for me was entrepreneurialism. I always worked for a major corporation that had enormous prestige on its own, so it always pre-sold me. I would walk into a room and people would expect that they would be getting best in class because Darcy Macias Benton and Bowles or Mediacom or Gray Advertising was always considered the leaders. While Active International is the largest corporate trading company in the world and independently owned, it's not a business model that a lot of people know. So it was incumbent upon me to pre-sell myself each time I walk into a room, which was a little different feeling, and it's forced me to become a better business person. And because the company is smaller than the corporations that I worked with, I now have to understand that there's an SG&A management component. I have to understand that what you hire in is important to you. So entrepreneurialism, I'd say.
Jim, thank you. Thank you for being here. What's the website address of Active?
www.activeinternational.com.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We've been talking to Jim Porcarelli, who's the Chief Strategy Officer, and more, as we learned, of Active International. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com,